all read it, but we really can talk about it and hopefully get it clearer in your head. One of my things is I like to talk about electricity like water because we can see water and it makes it much easier to understand, and they all have the same principles. Like voltage and power, wattage is power, and a motor runs on watts. It can be a lower voltage, and then it takes more amperage. But it's still going to equal the same. So a 24-volt motor can run on less amperage than a 12-volt motor. It ends up needing the same amount of power. If you were feeding that with a garden hose, in order to fill a 5-gallon bucket in 30 seconds, if you have a garden hose, it's going to take a long time. That's low voltage, right? And so it's going to take a while. If you fill it with a fire hose, you can do it in a couple of seconds. You've got a much higher volume, but in the end, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 seconds to fill that, it's 5 gallons of water. So there's always equivalencies, and that's how we gotta figure that out. Now, in a car has something that our droids don't have. Anybody know what that is? A charging system. Your car needs to start when you get in it. When you go to the store and you run some things and blah, 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 and it's charging. So the battery needs to get ready for the 20 minutes from now when you want to start it again. A car battery doesn't discharge much, it stays nice and happy. And batteries, when they invented cars, really, really sucked. And so they were doing really well just to get that to work. But that really has nothing to do except the name battery with what we're doing with our droids now. So anytime there's heat in your droid, it's a bad thing. It's a waste of energy. Every voltage regulator you put in your droid, it's a bad thing. You may need it, but you want to not have them. They won't work without generating heat, and anytime you're generating heat, you're losing battery. And when you lose battery, you're done for the day. Or you got to put another one in, or you got to stop and charge it. We need to really think about it differently. And one of my focuses in that article is get a bigger wire. Always get a bigger wire. Get as big a wire as you can fit in your terminal, because putting it too much power through a wire will work. But it may generate a little bit of heat, and that heat is energy, and that energy is wasted. And if nothing else, it just took 5 minutes off your day playing with your droid. May not be dangerous. Now, if you get it too far out there, that's what a toaster is. You know, it's exactly how it works. And a few of us may have experienced actually turning your droid into a toaster. Our friend Ryan, who's not here this year, in a wheelchair, actually had his droid burst into flames in his living room. Now let's all talk about that for a second. There's an exciting moment in a droid owner's life. And in your chair, trying to get your other wheeled vehicle that weighs more than you out the door to burn, you know, at that point, you're happy to have him burn up as long as you do it outside. But so thicker wires generates no heat, and like I said, really it's just questions we need to talk about. But big wires, lots of fuses. We have in droids, especially if you have moving parts, wires will fray. So we're building things to cut wires with that will then make our day bad. If you have a fuse, it won't be so bad. Again, now there's a couple conditions. Motor controllers don't want fuses. And even that, we kind of live in a lawyerly world where the motor controller people say, don't put a fuse in it. Because if you can't get a regeneration path back to your battery, which a blown fuse will create, the motor controller will blow up. But your droid won't catch on fire, because your fuse blew. But they won't ever have to replace your droid if it catches on fire, they just would have to replace your motor controllers if it can function properly. So they say, yeah, no fuses. No fuses at all. Well, okay. And I don't run fuses, but, and again, I like to live dangerously. But I've also got what probably a lot of you would consider really big wires in my droid. So yes, again, the articles are there for everyone to look at. I believe in a battery and then a fuse immediately. That's pretty big, like 50 amp, whatever. All the loads in your droid should be able to run on that fuse. But if anything ever gets a dead short, if nothing else, right there at the battery is a master fuse. And probably it will never, ever blow. And that would be a good thing. It's there. And then, as you branch off and do other things, put another fuse in. Put an inline fuse if you need to. They're really there. I mean, your car has 40, 50 fuses in it. And it's not just because they thought they looked nice. It's that, you know, your car needs 40 or 50 fuses, and your droid should at least get a dozen. So, again, I don't know what you guys want to know. Yes?
What gauge wire do you recommend to the bigger wire? Do you have a gauge that you
There are calculators, and I've got some of that in the article. In DC, again, great question. So, I don't know how far back to go. AC power is an alternating current, and DC power is direct current. And when you're picking out amperage, DC power will always take more amps than AC power because the AC power is a sine wave and the DC power is all the time. And the AC power in the same amount of amperage will not get as hot in an overload because it's alternating again. It's getting a chance to cool down in every sine cycle. DC doesn't have that. So there are different amperage tables for DC power, but they're really hard to find. Most of the time when you find anything that lists amperage, it will be for AC power, and then just try to be a little conservative. It's not 50% different, just be a little more conservative. It's somewhere between an 8 and a 10, go to the 8. But you need to figure out what your load is for what you're doing, and the distance that matters. And then there's charts to tell you. The other thing you can do, and I've listed it in that article, Harbor Freight has a little gizmo that will plug in where your fuse goes, and then the fuse piggybacks on that, and it's a display. It will then track your amperage and freeze the highest it ever gets to. So you go out and run your droid with fuse protection, and when you get done, you can see that it got the 8 amps. And that will tell you, if you're running a 15 amp fuse, you probably should get by with a 10. If you're constantly blowing the fuse, it will tell you, well, I had that spiked out before, it's been blue. That's valuable information too. But normally bigger, I would not. I see a lot of droids with really small wires running to the foot motors, and I'm like, yeah, it's not really good. So much easier to feed through. But we probably should go bigger, if nothing else. Like I said, if your droid never even starts to smoke, you are still costing yourself time to go play with your droid. Because the smaller the wire, more heat it's going to generate, and that's taking it out of your battery and not giving you anything back in return. So there is no question, or there's no answer to what wire should it be, other than doing your research, looking it up. There's also really interesting, outside of what seems logical, In the article, I list batteries, and I don't know how to get away with it, but like what are the batteries that are in cars that, they got yellow tops, blue tops, red tops? Optimus. So the chart for an Optima that gets to say it's a 20 amp hour battery. That 20 amp hour is based on a 1 amp discharge that will go for 20 hours. And the Optima goes, cool, we're 20 amp battery. Well, then look at the other part of that chart where you put a 20 amp discharge on that battery, 6.5 minutes. Hey, that's not a 20 amp hour battery. So, but again, a car battery is only needed to start the car, and then the charging system will be right there to help it out to get to the next place. All the other batteries, all the new batteries, and battery technology in the last few years has come so far. Most of us got here on that new battery technology, right? A lot of us from the parking lot. But they can, a 20 amp hour in a new battery, in a NiCad or something like that, 20 amp hour rating, it'll give you 20 amp hours in both directions. You can go 1 amp for 20 hours, or you can go 20 amps and actually get an hour instead of 6 minutes. So they're a huge advantage for us because we're not drawing teeny bits of power. We're drawing a lot of power. And yes.
What about using relays?
I love relays. Okay. That is actually good question, Brian. Relays are our friends because we all need to turn on and off our droid, and a relay for a master power relay, a switch that will handle 50 amps or 60 amps is huge. And try to hide that, you know. But if there's a convenient place to put a teeny little switch, that teeny little switch can control a 60 amp relay buried deep in the middle of your droid, and that works just as well. And so you can hide things, you can have Arduinos control anything with a relay. And again, I cover relays pretty well. There's flyback diodes that are needed. And that's really confusing because it looks like you're shorting out your relay. But I'm not an electronics guy, I'm an electrical guy. There's two different things. So I've struggled to learn electronics, yes.
Fuses versus circuit breakers. People tell me I'm crazy because I run marine grade circuit breakers in my droids, my switches and fuses.
Don't like them. They used to be too expensive and too unreliable. But like that, it's, you know, I'm a very old man, and all the things I used to know are not true anymore. Some of them I still hold on to, but it's just because I'm nostalgic. But circuit breakers are often better than fuses because you don't have to go find a new one. You just need to let it cool down and push it. But yeah, it also will not kill your battery to set it directly on concrete. But try to convince anyone my age of that. So, more questions? Yeah, well, we need, so why don't we have an alternator? Good, but we need an electric motor to turn it. What's that? Yeah.
You could recharge your arm by pushing that.
Or if theoretically, you also want to regenerate it where you do something else with your legs.
If you have the right motor control.
Yeah, but the problem is pulling more current than generated. It's just same principle for it.
Perpetual motion machine is right impossible. So we'll never get where we need to go, so we might as well put in another life form scanner or something.
No mouse enhanced the wheel side.
No, but it'd be a very cool feature. Everybody would go, oh my gosh, that's the first one I've seen. And then you could walk around like a cock and walk. So Sam was just asking me before I come up here, a friend of his in Texas had a saber-tooth start on fire. And what would cause that? Like, look, Texas. So the rest of us are safe. But yeah, it's a really good question. I'm wondering if it was from regeneration. So, again, there's another thing that we all need to understand, and maybe not fear as much as just understand that every electric motor is an electric motor because it's using energy to create motion. And in return, it will create energy with motion. So your motors, when you push them, will force electricity back through the controllers, right? We all know that, because we don't want to. And if you have a cutoff switch after the controller, so that the energy can't get through the controller back into the battery, it's going to fill up the capacitors on the controller. And I don't know, did any of you have high school electronics classes? Because they still offered them when the dinosaurs roamed the world, when I was in high school. And the teachers would actually tell us the best things to do by forbidding it the first day. And one of the best things you can do is plug a capacitor into an outlet, because they take the energy and they store it, and then a few seconds later they don't think they can store it anymore, but they can, and then they blow up. And that's what's happening with our controllers. If we push our droids, the power can't get back to the battery to be stored, it blows up the capacitors on the controller. Again, all motors will do it. Brushless motor is a 3-phase, not as efficient as generator by any means, so it's safer, but still there. Gonna happen. So if you gotta push your droid, speed does matter. So if you decide to do what the controller people ask and not use it, you're not switched it and everything's there, you've got no problem. Well, like I found myself in a position, I can hot swap my batteries. So you take out the battery, and then you realize, I'm out. I don't have a battery. I'll push it back in the car. Well, I don't have a battery anymore. Now I'm in potentially damaging situation of pushing it back in the car. I can go back and find another battery and plug it in and do all that, but you know what? I'll just walk slow. Because I think I'm smarter than physics. And whether or not I am smarter than physics, or whether or not I wasted a controller, I can't say because my wife's. But more questions? Whatever you're wondering, someone else is wondering too. Yes.
So, master switch is it good for closer to the battery, closer to the foot drive, or what?
So the question, master cutoff switch, near the battery, near the foot drive. Accessible matters. Anything between the battery, source of power, and the master cutoff switch is potentially dangerous. Right? So you think of that as danger Will Robinson. So I literally will put, 3 inches of wire and a master cutoff mounted on the battery or near the battery, and then run that with a relay. Because I want my uncontrolled danger to be as small as possible. Once I put a fuse in, anything downwind from there, it's only going to go as far as that fuse. And again, none of us want that. The other thing we can do that is so difficult is keep your wiring all neat and clean and in wire runs. And, when you look at someone's droid and it's like all straight and tucked down and you think, wow, I wish mine looked like that. Those are the safest ones too. obviously, they have too much time on their hands, but it's safe. So, yes,
Going back to the regeneration stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried with, you were talking about relays earlier, with the brushless motors, like putting relays between the controller and the motor to sort of auto, disconnect them? And then if so, like which phases do you need to do it on, all of that?
well, it's, again, brushless motors are three-phase. You have to do 2 out of the 3 to do any good. Then you've got 2 relays you're hoping work every single time. I wouldn't do it. I would keep it simple, and especially with a brushless motor, they really make horrible generators because of the way that 3 phases are working. So if you really can push your brushless motor all day long as you're not trying to run with it, you know? But just push them slow. I've never had a problem. Yes.
So with NBC motors, we got 2 wires coming off the one motor,
Yeah.
red and black. Goes back to the saber tooth. Do I need to put the switches then between the NBC and the saber tooth to kill that regeneration?
Yes.
So a switch for each wire.
Yes. No.
No.
There really is no. Okay, with a DC motor, they come out of there with a red and a black wire. That's really just to confuse you if you don't know a lot about what a DC motor is in a robot. Because when you're going forward, it's positive and negative, and when you're going backwards, it's the other way around. So there is no positive and negative at that point. But as long as you cut one of those wires, you're safe. The circuit can't get complete. And again, it's where and when, and so the best thing to do is to understand what the problem is. The motor will always be a generator, and if that power makes it to the controller and can't go further, it has the ability to destroy that controller. So yes, if you can stop it before the controller, that's good, and you should not stop it after the controller and back. But yes.
So if you stop it in between, where does that energy go?
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't go in. That's a good question. Those are when you're really high. You think those things. That's so if a bear's in the woods. So yeah, I don't know where that energy goes. It does get. No one knows.
Does it heat up the coils?
Just potential energy.
Yeah, it is at that point it is potential. Yes. Yeah. Every droid is different, and that's the thing. You want the question is how do you build a power panel? You want to. Again, I agree with Doug. It's really handy to have things close to where you need it, and so that's why we all build our droid, and then we change it, and then we change it again, and we change it again, and we change it again. If you build a second droid, you got a big advantage because you've already got the 4 times you rebuilt your first one to figure out, I'm going to want the motor controller here because that leaves enough room to put the dome controller near the dome motor, right? So a lot of times the placement doesn't matter except for neatness and wire length, which are both important. So it will work if you put your dome controller at the bottom of the droid and you have a 3-foot run down to it, a 3-foot run up to it, and you turn it on, the dome will spin. Maybe not the best, but it'll work. So that becomes a detail. You got everything working, then you look at it and go, oh man, looks like spaghetti in here. Now you got some room for improvement, and the more you improve, the more better it will be. Yes.
what's a good way to determine amperage for your fuse? I mean, cause you'll buy a board, says they'll handle 12 volts, but that's all they'll tell you. So
Yeah.
how do you know what fuse do I need to put this in line with?
Like I said, there's a little handy gadget in a Harbor Freight, $15,
Okay.
and it will run and then tell you on a display what you're running. The other thing is just the old-fashioned way, put it in a 5-amp fuse, and when that blows, put it in a 7. When they stop blowing, done. Really? Yeah,
Can I make a comment?
sure.
From the electronic side, if you have a bench power supply, you can give it a ceiling on the amperage and see if your circuit works there. Or you can adjust it up as needed and give it some headroom and call it a day.
Yeah, there are a lot of tricks. I mean, electricity is math, and there are things you can do. If you hook your entire droid and take where your battery would go on your droid, and again, it's even more convenient if you're at home, like Murmur has it on his travel stand, you can hook up some power, and if that power shows you amperage, once you're hooked up like that and you start turning stuff on, read, turn everything on, read what it's drawing. That's all information that, you're not gonna take your droid out like that, but boy, you learn a lot by doing stuff like that. It just, unfortunately, the geeks of us that have power supplies and digital readouts are not everyone. And again, if you're gonna go buy a power supply with a digital readout, you know what? You could just replace the fuse with a larger one and then take that money and build a light phone scanner. The very, very extreme problems with electricity, and you could start a fire, you could be wasting a ton of energy. More than likely, that's not the case, but we're building really expensive toys, and when you go somewhere and you open it up, you want to be proud of it, although nobody will care except us. 323, I sell 323 kits. I've sold them to a lot of you guys, and I hope I told everybody I've ever sold it to. I want you to know, no one but a builder will care about this at all. I don't know why. It's just the weirdest thing. In a group of people, they just think R2s do that. And if they didn't see that R2 do it, it's because he just finished it 5 minutes ago, obviously. What the hell do it? Everyone knows that. So, and it's again, the wiring. I don't know why it's so confusing, but it is confusing. But just go bigger, like anything else. Put a bigger wire in there. Yeah. It's sticky to the top of automation.
Electronics and radio control.
Yeah.
That's subsystem. And then the very first thing.
He didn't read it.
I just before I went to bed, read it every night.
You know, that's what my wife says. I couldn't sleep, so I read your article.
The discussion before that was pushing the droids with the batteries out. You're talking about use of diodes, kind of say that you have to infuse as well. Can you touch on that?
Okay, yes. The question is the blown fuse. Again, you push a motor, it's going to generate power. If you have a blown fuse, you're generating a little bit of power. It's not going to take much, so there is a way, if you had a wire with a diode on it, which a diode is a one-way check valve for electricity, right? It can go one way and not the other. So the power can't get from the battery to the motor, but you've got this blue wire with has a path back around the controller to get to the battery. It has a diode in it, so it's only one way. It's like the fail-safe. If you blow a fuse and you've got this little wire and you don't push more than 10 miles an hour, it's always going to be enough to get back to the thing. It's another thing to do. It's possible. It works. It's, you know, it's like, some people say, if I wasn't so fat, I'll live longer. But oh well, this is, so you can have that wire, and it's probably a great idea. So is low blood pressure. I'm not stopping drinking. What's the best idea, and it's also one more wire. So it's one more wire. It's going from the foot up through the shoulders, back down to the battery, two more wires. So it's everything you do is a give and a take.
Just put it slow.
That's my answer.
But it's pushing it like, well, I remember not to push it with batteries in. Well, I remember not to push it, well, push it slow with batteries in. Push it slow when the fuse is on.
Well, it doesn't matter what I do. Don't do it. Yeah, you're gonna hurt something, and that's my fault. Don't do it. It's all common sense. Make the droid in such a way that it always runs and you never have to push it. How's that? Yes, sir.
So your article you wrote a few years ago, a lot of information is still current. Is there anything in there that is updated stuff or new things you learned that would be in, say, a version 2 or an appendix?
You know, I read it last week with those same questions, and there's really not. Electronics has changed, electricity hasn't, and I'm really dealing with electricity there. It hasn't changed. We're not doing anything different. Are there other components and stuff? Sure, but the basic laws of the physics involved with electricity haven't changed. So,
Do you recommend like the master cutoff switch, like if there's one that you feel like easy and place for all of their circuit, or is it just?
well, sure. The question is, where do you put your master on-off switch? How about we put it right in the middle of the top dome panel? It'd be really easy to get your right hand without leaning over, but now it might not be canon. So find someplace that you like better, but that's my choice now. I don't know. Every droid is different again. You know, I really faced that when I came up with the skin, with the frame where your skins come off. Because the on-off switch has to be on the core, but it has to be accessible from outside. And so finally, after just a bunch of trial and error, cut the back off of the coin returns and put a switch on the core where I can put my finger up the coin return and flip the switch. And so, you know, I just tell my droid, bend over and pop, turn it off. It works, but you know that works for my skin. I actually send the switches with them. But again, it's the bottom of the skirt. Kind of the whole idea of relays is though, any little teeny tiny switch can be your master on-off switch if it's controlling a relay instead of trying to switch to 50 amps of master power. So relays are your friend. Big wire is your friend. Big fuses are your friend.
People do use the little 5 kind of control switches to turn off big stuff.
Yeah, don't tell me.
It works.
No, it doesn't. It's just, you know, yeah. So the other thing, let me talk about that for a little bit, because motors will work, they've got lots of numbers. So you have a motor on flat ground to drive your droid, and while you're going, it's drawing 10 amps, 11 amps, 12 amps, right? And then you hit a ramp, and maybe it jumps to 50 amps. And you get to a point where your droid stalls because it's on too much of a ramp. And at the end there, it's 100, 120 amps, 130 amps. And that's where suddenly you've got a problem, because you're designed it around that 13 ounce of normal running, and you're not in you're not in trouble. You're just going up that ramp going into the convention center. The droids get slower and slower. I don't know what the problem is. But when it starts smoking, then you go, hey, I might not have this venue covered anymore. So, but that's when so you look up, when you're designing a thing, look for the stall capacity of that motor. Because it will keep trying until it gets to that. So build for the stall amperage and you'll be safe. And that's not including that little 5 amp switch that you've got controlling it. But others have. I've been to Celebration. I've looked at a lot of droids. And then moved mine away. Quietly. I don't want to hurt his feelings. But yeah, it's just, here's the difference. Yes, steel in the back.
Do you find any particular relays that have any significant power drains due to the relay itself?
Any significant
Power drains,
Power
massive power drains from the relay itself.
I don't know. Again, every droid is different. Most things don't take any power when they're off. Things with logic will take a little bit of power, but it's so infinitesimal that it won't matter. They will draw amperage, but it's not, again, you charge your battery and you bring it to an event. If you've left it plugged in so all the logics are working, lights are working, you're not going to be surprised when you get there and they're not working anymore. So unplug it all, but that's all just common sense. Do you have a purpose in that question, sir?
No, I just thought I'd throw you a question.
I was just gonna say to that, you can also get bistable relays, which means it's not using power in either position. You only need the power to switch between them. Right? So
Yes.
that would solve your, is it drawing power the entire time I got my droid on?
Well, so it's a master switch it takes from the battery. So that's, there's that is turned on. And again, I'm not, you know what? We're all spending a bunch of money to build a toy. There's not a right way and a wrong way to do it. I'm certainly not going to say you did it wrong, but inside. Yes.
What's like that droid catching on flyers in this particular instance?
It wasn't an R2, so we don't care. You're from Canada, that's so far from Texas, it really doesn't matter.
Oh, Texas.
It wasn't Texas, it was a big probe droid, and it's like McMaster's probe droid, right? Big old gigantic both sides, and it was the dome spinning mechanism, right?
That's right, yeah.
So my first thought is maybe once they got it spinning and turned it off, now it's regenerating for another, so the motor controller, even though it's only running half the time, it's doing full-time duty in both directions. So I don't know. I don't know what would cause that, except just need a bigger motor controller, And that's, some of this is common sense. A lot of the stuff we do is because someone else did it for us. And it was a Sabertooth 30 amp controller, controlling a 5-foot dome. So maybe he just needs a Sabertooth 60 amp controller. Maybe the answer is that simple, but not something wrong. He just, made a wrong decision.
Yeah, there's one more option to deal with the regenerated currents is to wire in dump loads. Basically a big resistor, especially in a metal droid, there's a lot of metal you could heat up. So then you can, because for the electric skateboard people, they have to deal with the situation, your battery is full, and now you have regenerating current coming in. So they have like this heat resistor at the bottom.
And again, there's that line between electronics and electric. And whatever I don't know, I let him keep that knowledge. Yes, there's lots, again, when you think of a better way to build a mousetrap, post it and we'll all steal it. And that's, you know, we can always count on each other, and we do, and this is a wonderful group for that. And you know, well, I've been playing with electricity before they invented the microchip. So I knew how to blow off capacitors. That's it. So when there was lots and lots of questions, I wrote those articles. I had no idea they would be as popular as they are, but I'm glad if it's helped anyone.
Help me. I read it in 2018, and it's basically been the basis of all my electrical. I haven't blown anything up yet.
No, that's good.
Yet.
Yeah, but you know, that's the thing about R2s. I know there's lots of us that are in different positions and places in life, but I love the fact that I really don't worry about anything with my R2 because I know the guy that built it, and I can get him to fix it if anything is broken. So it's not like some exotic car that I got to worry about. How do I fix it if it breaks? I know that. He's overworked, he won't get to mine right away, but it'll happen eventually. So, you know, play with your droid. Love it as much as the 5-year-old kid does. And I've never had, has anyone ever had to kick them up and say the buttons are on the wrong side?
One first.
Yeah, well, that's just us.
One first.
Yeah. So much of what we care about that only these people care about. You know, every little kid, you take the droid out and he goes, "Flip mom, BB-8."
Yeah.
But he's excited about that. So it's all good, it's all fun. Don't let your droid go up in smoke and all be happy. More questions? Time for pictures then? Cool.